Hello. Well, I'm speaking with you today on this day, Oshlu Anil, this end of the Ajmak Trecena. And today we're going to be speaking about the Trecena of Toj. So we've come through the Ajmak Trecena. We've done our forgiving. We've owned up to what we need to own up to. We have made our forgiveness, forgiven ourselves, done all of those kind of things. We kind of like started that process rolling. And, as we go through the calendar, one of the things I think is really interesting is to actually weave the Trecenas together like a story, like an understanding that this is a cycle that we're going through as a cycle of life or a cycle of time or however it might be. And so we could see that in the Ahmak Trecena, we have made this pledge of acceptance. We've made this pledge of trying to do better. Is that the right way of putting it? Maybe that's maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but like it's that acceptance of who we are and who other people are and forgiveness. But there may still be something outstanding. And that is like, it's like let's say that somebody breaks your window. Now, they might come round and they might apologize and they might say, look, I'm really sorry. Kind of like the stone flew out from my machine and it broke your window. I'm very sorry. But then we still need to replace the window, right? And so, even though the forgiveness, the apology part, you might say, yeah, you know what? It happens, but I got a broken window and I still need to replace it. And so, after the apology, we then come to the the payment to make it right. And so we can see this going from the Ajmak Trecena into the Toch Trecena, which we're just about to begin. So we've gone through the Ajmak Trecena, we've come out at 13 Kanil, we've come out at, kind of like spirit giving you the abundance, bringing things to ripeness, bringing things to a joyful conclusion. But now it's time to say, right, okay, so how are we now going to go forward and make sure that things are brought into balance? Because after that, we're then going into the Iktrasena, the breath of fresh air, the new breath, the new, another kind of like new life kind of thing. And so you see the way that these Tresenas are fitting together. And it will be interesting because it will be during the Ik Tresena that we'll be going through Mayan New Year. The new Mayan solar year of 11 Ech will come in during the next Tresena of Ik. And so I'll do a little bit more about that during the Ik Tresena video. Anyway, I hope that's not too confusing. Let's go back to just talking about the Trecena. So it's a time of payment. It's a time of making things right. It's a time of paying off debts. The reason why I mentioned the new year is because, it's kind of like seeing, okay, let's tidy things up, right? We've forgiven it, we pay it, and then that leaves us able to take that breath of fresh air during the new, the next Trecena for the new year. And so you see where I'm going with that. This is a time to be settling things so that they are done and out of the way and left behind. We can move on from them. And so Toch Tresena gives you the opportunity to pay for what you've received, to give something back, to do your service, however that might be, or whatever that might entail, in order to balance the books, as it were, to make sure that we have done what needs doing so that we can move forwards healthily, so that we can move forwards without any burdens of debts or anything like that. So it's a great time to be settling things out. And we could see it as 13 days of service as well, because Toch is very much the Nawal of service and payment. And so, it's kind of like, okay, what can I give back and how can I give it back? There's going to be opportunities on each of the 13 days of the Trecena of Toch to do just that. So we're going to begin with the day one Toch, the beginning of the service, the beginning of the payment. This could involve something where you are moving into a new way of using your energy to help those around you, to serve those around you. It may bring up something new to be paid. It might bring up something new to also receive payment from, because Toch works both ways. When we're resolving debt, we might be resolving our debts by paying something off, but also others might be resolving their debts to us. One Toch is a new evaluation of that. And I would really see one Toch as finding a new way to serve, finding something new that you can do for your community, for your world, helping to understand how you can give of your energy to ensure that your community and your family are supported. So for me, one Toch very much the new fire, the new ceremony, the new act of service. From one Toch, we're then going into two Tz'i. So Tz'i, the wall of faith, of loyalty, of unconditional love. Then it's very attached. Tz'i is like, the Nawal of the dog, and we think about how our dogs love us unconditionally and how they look to us and how they just want to be with us. We make their worlds complete. So this is one way that we can see Tz'i. It's that faith that they have in us that we're going to come back. There's that kind of like, what was it, bumper sticker, fridge magnet meme or whatever. Be the person your dog thinks that you are. That's what Tz'i sees in us, and that's what it gives us to see in each other. Now, when we talk about seeing it in each other, we see it here with the number two. The number two, which can represent self-sacrifice, and the number two, which can represent relationships. And so, we could see that Tz'i could very much be like, take some time. Maybe, kind of like in our world, we get busy doing our thing. We get busy doing our stuff. Do we make enough time for our significant other? Do we make enough time within our relationships? Do we make enough of our time? We get busy with our hobbies. We get busy with, those other things. And sometimes we don't appreciate our significant other as much as we could do. This is the Trecena of Toj. This is the Trecena to be keeping that balance, right? To be making a sacrifice, to be giving up a little bit of your energy in order to bring that balance back. And with the number two also representing self-sacrifice. Kind of like what I see with 2Tz'i is this is kind of like how we increase our bonding. Maybe it's a day to, and sorry if I take this down the relationship route, but that's kind of like where it wants to go, I think. But it's the time to kind of like make space to have a date night or whatever it is. Maybe you've been together a long time and, that's kind of like not quite how it was. But in order to put the energy into it, in order to make sure that it's sustained, in order to make sure it's serviced, then this is an opportunity to make a little self-sacrifice in order to keep that bond, to remember that unconditional love. We could also see that, if we're going outside of the relationship area, we can see it as making your self-sacrifice and using that to increase your unconditional love, to increase your faith, showing your true faith in something by spending your time on it, putting your love there. From 2Tz'i, we then go to 3 bats. So bats, usually bats is kind of like out there. Bats is the entertainer. Bats is, the performer and that kind of thing. But when we come back to it with the number 3, we see this internal number. We see this internally focused number. And so 3 bats perhaps is somewhere where, yes, it can be about creativity, but that creativity can be focused back within. That creativity could be focused much more within the home. So I often think of, if bats is a creative type and 3 represents the home, then I see 3 bats concerned with things like let's say, food preparation, interior design. These are all art forms, but they are focused within the home, and it's very, very nourishing to do that. So perhaps the form of service that could be expressed today would be through cooking, would be through decorating, would be through making the home a beautiful place for your family and for yourself as well. But for me, three bats is really saying kind of like, this is not necessarily the day when we might feel like going out on stage and singing our heart out or something like that. This is a time when we're focusing that creative essence in our home. That's where we're putting the essence of our service. From three bats, we then go into four Now, if there was a day to make a journey, four would be it. The Nawal of the path, the Nawal of the road, the Nawal when we ask for our paths to be clear, for them to be smooth, for them to be open. Number four, representing the physical plane, representing the material. So this is, for me, an excellent day to be making a physical journey. It's an excellent day to be asking for the four directions to be cleared, for your path in whatever direction on the physical plane to be open. And yes, it might well be much more about the physical world rather than the spiritual path or the mental path or the emotional path, because it's a four, because it's down to earth. But if you got to go and make a journey somewhere, then 4 should be your day to do it. It should be the day really to ask for that physical path to be opened. So for me, kind of like I've certainly got some journeys coming up on 4 which hopefully are going to go smoothly, but that's why we choose to make them on 4 right? Because that's what we do with the calendar. Helps us to understand how to put our best foot forwards. And so when it comes to travel or planning travel or doing anything like that, 4 can be very much physically about that. And perhaps by way of service, you might want to give somebody a lift, as kind of like if you're driving somewhere or something like that, then that's a way that we can help to weave that Trecena of Toj into that 4 day. From 4 we're then going into 5 Ach. So Ach, the Nawal of community, the Nawal of harmony in community, the Nawal of leadership, the Nawal of standing up for what is right, doing the right thing in order to promote harmony within our community. And here we see it with the number 5. And, creating harmonious community, creating harmonious situations, it doesn't come without a little bit of effort, right? We've got to put some work in somewhere. On 8 days, we are giving thanks for a roof over our heads. We're giving thanks for our home. We're giving thanks for our family and for our community. And when we see 5 for me, this is saying, well, and we got to give a little, right? We got to put a little bit of our effort, some of our energy into making that harmony happen. Whilst we might consider that things, when they are in, kind of like in the right way of making things happen, they will flow quite naturally. But often we need to give them a little gentle push to get them moving. And we're going to need to give a little attention once in a while, a bit of our energy once in a while, in order to make sure that harmony is preserved within our community. And this is the day to do it. So if there is a need for an adjustment to be made, if there is a need for something to be said to bring greater harmony to your home or to your community, then 5 is the day to do it. Now, it may be one of those things that when you look at it, you think, oh, this is going to take a lot of energy to do that. But quite often we'll find that, we kind of think about it for, I don't know, half an hour or sometimes a couple of days or something like that. And then when we actually get round to doing it, we find that once we commit to it, once we put our energy into it, actually it moves a lot quicker than normal. And this is what I've often found with fives and with 5 days, is that once we start committing our energy towards that, once we start putting our work into it, actually, it wasn't quite as difficult as we thought it would. It tends to roll forward rather quickly. So it's almost like the committal of energy towards that process that starts the ball rolling. But once it starts rolling, then it continues at its own pace. And so this is certainly the day to put that spark of energy into harmony within your home, harmony within your community. That spark of energy being your service, your energy that you're putting into it. So where we see that fitting into the Toj Trecena is that 5 Ach is the day to use your energy to bring harmony to your community. From 5 Ach, we then move into 6 Ish. So Ish, the Nawal of the feminine, Ish, the Nawal of the altars and the shrines of the sacred places and of Mother Earth. And here we see it with the number 6, the number of ultimate stability, the number that combines the physical plane with the heart of the sky and the heart of the earth. So as we move through that day 6-ish, this is kind of like doing something in the physical, but allowing it to be inspired by the upper world and the underworld. Now, for me, 6-ish can be a great day to be visiting a shrine, especially if it needs a clear up. You know, sometimes the altars that we use, the altars, you know, kind of like when we see it at this time of year, we see as we're moving at this, you know, in the northern hemisphere anyway, and particularly kind of like further north, we know that kind of like over November, December and January, maybe we haven't been using those altars quite so much. And maybe we go out around about Imox, which is around about that time, and we clear the altars, we clear the shrines, because this is something that we could see as a very good exercise for the day 6-ish. We could see that it's the time to make our reparation, where we're putting our service, clearing the altars, preparing them, getting them ready as we move into that new year, as we move into that new era where we're going to be starting to use them again. So for me, this is again a very good way of serving on the 6-ish day within the Toj Trecena. It's go clear something up, go and make sure that nature, that Mother Earth is attended to, and go and connect, like enhance the stability of your connection with those sacred sites by going showing them a little love. From 6-ish, we're then going into 7 Tz'ikin. So 7 Tz'ikin, I often see as kind of like the eagle sitting on top of the pyramid. From that viewpoint, we can see everything. And when we can see everything, it's up to us to make a choice as to which direction to go in. Tz'ikin, which brings us the vision which helps us to understand how to prosper. And it brings us clarity, it brings us understanding. Now, one of the things I see with 7 Tz'ikin, I often think that both Tz'ikin and the sevens work very well as mediators, because when we're sitting up there, especially with the vision of the eagle, as it were, we can see all things in balance. We can see all things from the same viewpoint. And so 7 Tz'ikin often, I would say that 7 Tz'ikin and 10 Tz'ikin, although that's going to be in different Trecena, of course, we could very much see as being very diplomatic, because they can see all the different options. But the 7 also teaches us how we're going to take it forward, what we're going to do with it, how are we going to work with it and make it happen. Okay, how are we going to stay focused and stay on track with that vision? Now, we could also see, I often talk about Tz'ikin, or seeing Tz'ikin as the Nawal of prosperity, the prosperity for our children, for our grandchildren, for our future, for our planet, for Mother Nature. And 7 Tz'ikin is saying it's about choosing the vision. What vision do you have for the future? Because you might have several of them going on at the same time. So with this Trecena of service going on, what serves the future for your children, for the planet? What of your vision can do that? Because that might be something which comes very clearly to you on 7 Tz'ikin. From 7 Tz'ikin, we then move into 8 Ajmak. Now, again, I'm looking at this weaving of the Trecenas. Today, as I record this video, on 13 Anil, we are finishing the Ajmak Trecena. 20 days later, during the Toj Trecena, which I'm talking about in this video, we hit the 8 Ajmak. 8 representing wholeness, representing, we could see it as the cycle of life and the cycle of death. We could see it as like forgiveness and being forgiven. We could see it as wholeness. It is done. It is finished. It is complete and it has been put together. And so for me, the way that I see the 8 Ajmak is that possibly, kind of like what we've been doing with regards to our forgiveness work, and then with regards to our service, is leading up to this moment where all is forgiven, everything is done. And so, whilst we still might need to kind of like put our finishing touches in the Toj Trecena to our payments and that kind of thing, we can continue to serve, of course. We could see 8 Ajmak as making the ceremony of forgiveness. This is where it's like, right, okay, let's seal this thing up. Let's finish this off. Let's move on from it. And so 8 Ajmak is a wonderful day for forgiveness ceremonies. Now, this, of course, is your service to yourself and others, because you're letting go of stuff, because you're allowing it to move on. You're allowing yourself and others to move on. Now, there are many ways to make forgiveness ceremonies. Of course, I like working with fire and I like working with candles and that kind of thing. Or it might be verbal, such as Ho'oponopono. Or it might be, well, I'm sure that you can think of many ways that you make your forgiveness ceremonies. But this is the day to say, right, okay, it's all done. We're over it. We're moving on. Okay? It's in the Trecena of Toj. Toj is about ceremony and payment, right? And so this is where we might have said our apologies or whatever, wherever we needed to make it. We might have made our payment to rectify any damage that was caused. But then 8 Ajmak is where we make the ceremony to tie it all up together and say, right, okay, kind of like we checked all the boxes. This is now fully forgiven. Move on. Okay? So for me, like, yes, make your ceremony of forgiveness. Make your ceremony of acceptance. That's what I think would be a wonderful thing to do, because then it allows us to really move on. And where are we moving on to from 8 Ajmak? We're moving on to 9 Noch. Noch, the Nawal of the mind, of intellect, of, I like to see it as the left hemisphere of the brain, of logic, of intelligence. The Noch can be very logical in that way, and sometimes that logic can bring a certain squareness to it. Well, not when the 9's involved, it can't, because the 9 then rounds off the corners, because the 9 brings in the feminine essence. And so for me, I think that 9 Noch is one of the most interesting ways of putting it, because it's this combination that brings these two essences together. We could certainly see it, kind of like the easy way. If I was to choose two words to describe 9 Noch, I'd say feminine logic. It is the brilliance of the idea that comes from Noch, with the compassionate essence of the feminine coming into it. It is this perfect combination. We could understand it, in some ways we're using the whole brain as well. And so 9 Noch is a fantastic ideas day. Like when we see 9, we could see the 9 as the number of life as well. And so if Noch is the problem solver, 9 Noch is solving life's problems. Now, I see Noch as often people who are like they're out there with an idea to make the world a better place. And so when we look at this idea as we move through the Toj Trecena of service, this is using your intelligence, using your intellect, and using the information that you carry to solve life's problems on behalf of your community, on behalf of your family. For me, that's what Nine Noch is all about. And so it's a great day for, brainstorming. It's a great day for working, particularly with the feminine, maybe with a group of women or whatever, in order to come up with solutions, because it's there that we should be looking on the day Nine Noch. From Nine Noch, we're then moving into 10 Tijax. What could be the upshot of solving life's problems? Community healing. Okay? 10 Tijax. If you had a day to make a community healing circle, 10 Tijax would be it. It's a beautiful day for it. So, for me, Tijax, the obsidian blade, which we use to cut through to the truth, which we use to heal in certain ways, we're cutting out that which is not required. We're cutting out that which is causing imbalance in order to bring things to their truth, to their perfection. Tijax, which is purifying. Now, that surgery might leave a scar, that surgery might be painful and that kind of thing. And here we see it with the number 10. And so, like, we could see 10 Tijax very much representing the purification of community. We can see it very much representing the healing of community. Maybe community has become divided. Maybe your family, your community in whatever sense has become divided because we live in quite divisive times, right? Well, 10 Tijax is time to heal it. 10 Tijax is time to get it back together. It's to make agreements with clarity, with truth, because Tijax is very much about clarity and truth. But this is the service for the day, extending your hand to help with the healing of community. What a wonderful way of service that could be. From 10 Tijax, we then move to 11 Kawok. So, Kawok, again, a healing day. Kawok, the feminine essence of healing. Kawok, the storm and the midwife. But here we see her soothing essence coming in. Now, I also call Kawok tough love. She is the one, she's the storm. She's not going to let things like fester along. If it's time to change the dressing, she's like, right, 1, 2, 3, off it comes, right? So she's got that element to her. But she is determined that the good will prevail, that things will get healed. She's coming along to soothe after the surgery, maybe to wash away some of the debris as well. Now, when we see her working with the 11, we see the focus in many different areas. And so for me, 11 Kawok might be focused on many different areas of healing. She is a strong day, and she's, kind of like, how can I put it? She's not got time to mess around with this kind of thing. It's just like what she has to do. But she may be called to many different areas to facilitate with the healing. Maybe that is what the service of the 11 Kawok day is about. To put your energy into going where you might be called, to help to facilitate the birth of the new into the world. And sometimes that's going to require a bit of a push to do it. From 11 Kawok, we are then moving into 12 Ajpu. Ajpu, representing the return to the source, representing our connection with the sun, with the ancestors, with the solar lords. This is kind of what we're all aiming for. I call Ajpu the hero's journey, because that's what they're on. They're on a quest to find that higher, more divine part of themselves. So Ajpu is a day to be walking our hero's path, to be walking our spiritual path, to be looking for that higher essence within ourselves and others, because it also brings out not only our divinity, but that of others. Now here we have it combined with the number 12. The number 12 I like to see as gathering together. It's like bringing together your life's experiences and creating your autobiography from them. Now, how might your autobiography serve to guide others? And so, again, I see something within this. It's like, if we were to look at it from the point of view of the Trecena of Toj as the Trecena of service, it might be to write down your experiences on your spiritual path. What has guided you? What has helped you to become a better person? How can you communicate that with the world, with the people around you, so that maybe this is going to help somebody? Maybe this is your service for the day, is to, kind of like write it out or get it out there somehow. Of like, kind of like when I was walking my spiritual path, or when I walk my spiritual path, I have found that this is really useful, or that's really useful. It's like setting up signposts. It's like we can imagine that if we're walking our spiritual path, we're walking it, and, we're focusing very much on like, I'm on my path, I'm on my path, I'm on my path, I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I am, getting closer to my divine essence, or whatever it might be, as I walk through life. But what about leaving, kind of like some signposts for others to find? What about leaving, I don't want to say breadcrumb trail, because I think that tends to lead us back to where we came from again. But it's more like leaving some markers to help others along their way. Kind of like when we used to do hill walking in places like Wales and that. You have the cairns where, they're beside a footpath and they help you find your way in the snow. And, like tradition has it that as you walk past, you put another stone. You're constantly maintaining the way markers that show the path. And so perhaps this is something that we can do in our own way to help those who are, kind of like following on behind us or whatever on the path, to find their way by marking our spiritual path with these little cairns, with these little way markers. So if we leave a little stone at every like point along the path, then that could be our service to others. How we got where we go, help others along. And then finally, we finish this Trecena of Toj on the day 13 Imox. Imox representing the dream. Imox representing the connection to the collective consciousness. And here with the number 13, an extremely strong day for dreaming. Now, yes, this could be about bringing in the dream of the ancestors. Yes, this could be about receiving messages from spirit. In fact, on 13 Imox, it would be pretty difficult not to receive them. I think it's kind of like, firstly, Imox has already got all those little psychic antennae turned on, and then the 13 has cranked them right up to 13. So it's a very, very sensitive day. It's a great day for tuning into the ancestors. It's a great day for tuning into spirit. It's a great day for receiving those dreams. But it could also be a very, very confusing day, because if we have all got our psychic antennae turned on and turned up, then we're tuning into each other as well. And we may lose the sense of who we are. What is our dream? We might become confused. We might become sort of very much drawn into the collective and not being able to feel where we stop and other begins. And so whilst 13 Imox could be a very, very good day for receiving the dreams from the ancestors or from spirit, it could also be an important day to take some time away from social media, away from your screen, away from newspaper or radio or any of those kind of things, if they still even exist, and go and spend some time by water. Go and tune into the water, because that 13 is very much about that. It's kind of like, it's like, okay, what do you choose to tune your antenna in? Because they're going to be super sensitive on 13 Imox. What dream of the ancestors can you bring in that helps to serve your community and finish up this Toj Trecena? So, as I say, highly recommend taking a bit of a retreat by a lake, by the ocean, be surrounded by water, and see what comes to you on that 13 Imosh day as a dream which might come in, as a communication which might come in from the ancestors that you feel from the collective. But understand your place in it and how you can use that dream to serve your community. So I hope that has been an interesting journey through the Toj Trecena, and I look forward to seeing you in 13 days' time for the Ik Trecena. Thank you.